Hi everybody and welcome to Safe Diving. I'm Mark, your friendly neighborhood dive instructor, and in today's video I'm going to be taking a closer look at fins because there are just a million different types of fins out there and you should only really need one pair to do it right. So which ones are the right fins for you? The more fins that you look at, the more groups you can start to put them in, which can quickly cut down your choices and narrow it down to what suits your diving best. If you're a multi-talented diver and do lots of different things, then you can either invest in a multi-purpose type of fin that kind of does everything well, or you can get your specialist pair for that sort of diving and then a completely different pair for a different type. So I have my freediving fins for my freediving, and then I have my scuba diving fins for my scuba diving. You can kind of mix and match and kind of cross them over, but my freediving fins don't do particularly well in confined spaces because they're really long. And my scuba diving fins, they're really short, so for free diving you're working a little bit too hard. So you can kind of get an all-rounder or you can get specialists. So let's break down fins into their sort of different sections and see what you should really be looking at. Full foot fins with a foot pocket are made to be worn barefoot, so they'll be sized appropriately. So these guys are light and they are fantastic for traveling because they're usually pretty flat, so they pack away really easily, and they're light. They're pretty cheap too, so they don't break the bank, but they do have their limitations. Because you wear them barefoot, they're obviously a no-go for colder waters because your feet are barefoot. And with long or strenuous dives, they don't really have the oomph, so you'll tire quite quickly. The smaller, lighter materials and lack of a boot means that you can get cramp in your foot quite quickly because you're using your foot to actually kick instead of your entire leg. Open heel fins are the choice of most scuba divers because they're more versatile and a bit more comfortable. That adjustable heel strap means that they fit much better and hold onto your foot better, but they do mean that you do need to buy an extra pair of boots as well, so there's that additional cost. Some fins give you the choice of both. You can literally get a full foot pair of Sea-Wing Novas and an open heel pair of Sea-Wing Novas. The full foot version will be much cheaper and a little bit smaller, and they'll still move you through the water faster than the feet that you were born with, but the open heel version is going to be bigger and more efficient. So if you're torn between the two, as a general rule, if you're traveling somewhere warm and you're only planning 1 or 2 dives off a boat or a sandy beach, then the full foot fins should do you fine. If you're going on a proper diving trip, diving the entire week where you'll be diving a lot, if you'll be diving in colder waters, or if you have to walk over rough terrain to get into the water, then get the open heel fins because you'll need those boots to keep your feet comfortable. If you do decide to go down the open heel route, you actually have some options here. So the standard is a rubber ratchet strap. These will be used on most fins as standards, and whilst they do the job, they're actually quite high maintenance. These work by loosening the straps, popping your foot in, and then tightening both sides of the straps on either side of your foot to hold your foot in place. It's kind of awkward when you have a tank already on your back and the boat is kind of pitching around. You'll have a 2-part buckle like this with a quick release to get out of them quickly, but the main problem with these is that when you descend and your wetsuit boot shrinks due to the pressure, the strap stays the same length, so they can actually become loose. Given the choice, upgrade these as soon as you can and keep the old strap just as a backup in your kit bag. Check out this part of the buckle with the right sort of movement. You can pop them off and get a look at the attachment point so that you can replace it with a different type of heel strap or replace it with the same. Usually you'll find this kind of notch on the side, but sometimes you can find something a bit more exotic. So it kind of depends what you want to put on there, whether you find something that fits the same brand. Usually if you stick to the same brands, their heel straps should fit their entire range. That's not a promise because it's never 100%. If you try and mix brands, it can be a bit awkward. You can't always put a Mara's fin strap on an oceanic fin. They don't always mix. The more exotic ones like this one, yeah, you kind of have to replace it with exactly what was on there. It's a bit hard to find a universal fin strap that kind of fits everything. So on that attachment point, that's where you can clip on a different strap, something like a bungee heel strap. So bungee heel straps are much easier to put on and take off. You can do it with a single finger instead of reaching down with two hands to kind of pull on a ratchet strap tight on both sides. Bungee heels, you only need one finger, yank it over your heel and you're in. It also automatically adjusts to your shrinking boot, so you never have to worry about that heel strap from slipping off again. There is a better version though, in my opinion. Metal spring heel straps work just the same way, only they're made from metal, not bungee. So they don't degrade in the sunlight and it's pretty hard to cut through them accidentally. Just remember to give them a good wash and a dry between dives so that rust can't form. For full foot fins, they'll come in a bunch of different sizes. If you're in between sizes, it's usually best to go up a size. You don't want them kind of wobbling around so they're loose on your foot because they'll just be uncomfortable and they might even fall off in the water. But if your fins fit fine at home, just remember that they could be tight in a hot climate as your foot kind of expands. So you don't want something too tight, otherwise it will just cut off blood flow. It'll also rub as well, but you don't want too big. You want that sort of Goldilocks in the middle. But as a general rule, I usually say go up a size, because if it's too big, you can always wear a pair of socks. It can help to pad them out so they fit better, and it can also help to stop them from rubbing in particular area if they don't fit perfectly. There won't be a left or a right, they're ambidextrous, so don't worry about sort of getting the right one on the right foot. And the same goes for open heel fins. If you have an open heel fin, you want them to fit much the same, big enough to fit your boots in properly, but not so big that they kind of wiggle around. You want something big enough to slip on and off your boots and not to stick on the very tip of your feet, because these will be a pain to get off at the end of a dive. When you put your fins on, you want this part of the fin to kind of reach around here with minimal effort. Size charts will usually be sized up for 5mm thick boots, so adjust accordingly. If you have something sort of thin, like a 2 or a 3mm slipper, you might want to go down a size if you're on the lower edge of that size chart, and vice versa. If you're wearing dry suit boots, of course you're going to have to go up a size because much bigger boots. But before you do anything, double check whether your fins are made to be worn barefoot, with neoprene socks, or with boots. As a general rule, full foot fins are sized up for bare feet. Open heel fins are primarily sized for 5mm boots, except for a few newer kind of snorkeling fins. They'll have adjustable straps, but they're made to be worn bare feet to complicate matters. Our freediving fins are sized for neoprene socks, usually. If you're ever in doubt, just ask. There's no universal rule, unfortunately. And if you don't know, there's no way to immediately tell what it's designed for, unfortunately. If you take a closer look at the foot pocket itself, look for large holes and channels inside the foot pocket, because these will help to prevent your fins from getting stuck on your feet. In the water, if you try to pull your fins off, you'll get that kind of suction action as you pull your foot out that you have to pull against. Big holes and channels prevent this, so you can get your fins off much easier. And at the end of the dive, the last thing you want to do is try and touch your toes and try and pull a fin off. You're already tired. Moving down from the fin pocket, the main section of the fin is where things get quite exciting. So technology has come a very long way since just strapping on a wooden plank to your foot and jumping in the water. So you have lots to choose from now. Starting up at the joining point between the foot pocket and the blade itself is the midsection, and you'll often find these big chunky rails on either side. The bigger the better with these rails, because these are what's transferring energy from your legs down towards the tip of the fin. Without these, the fins would just be all floppy and you'll be wasting a lot of energy. The big sort of rails either side, they're storing up energy and they're pushing it all the way down towards the tip. And a lot of this elastic energy actually works at different parts of the fin kick, so you want something big and chunky either side. These big rails also help to trap water from just sliding over the edge of the blade. You want the water kind of trapped in the middle and then sliding off the tip of the fin, because that's where it's most efficient. But if we go back to the midsection, you'll often find a bend. This is because if you point your toes out as kind of flat as you can right now, you'll notice your toes aren't exactly straight with the rest of your leg. There's a little bit of a bend. And adding that extra little angle inside the fin puts the blade at the perfect angle of attack. It makes it more efficient in the water, however it does make it a little bit tricky walking around on the flat deck of a boat because you have that extra bend. So they're great in the water, they're not so great when packing because you have this weird angular item inside of your bag, but yeah, when you're in the water, much more efficient. Some fins actually play to this perfect angle by adding a hinging section to the blade. So the blade can actually be at one angle during one part of the fin kick and then another angle at different parts of the fin kick. This way your hinged blade is always at the most efficient angle of attack. You just need to check them from time to time and be careful not to overextend them and of course kind of step on them because you can damage that hinge really well. Hinged fins will feel quite floppy in the water compared to a standard fin, but they're very efficient and they do shift you through the water really well. Also in the midsection you can often find holes in the fins, which feels kind of stupid. I mean, why would they put a hole in a pair of fins for the water to flow through? Where actually the area right in front of your toes can create a lot of drag in fins and use up your energy. So you'll find some fins with vents. Vented fins reduce this drag and some can actually redirect that water and use it again and turn it into thrust. So a hole right in front of your toes isn't a bad thing. And finally, a few newer fins are actually coming out that have separatable blades, so you can pack them a lot easier. You literally have your foot pocket, and then as long as you have an Allen key, you can literally unbolt the blade from it and they can pack right down into a small backpack. So these are designed for traveling divers who don't want a big, well, they want a big fin, but they want it to fit in a smallish bag. Very clever. The blade is the main flat section of the fin, and they've specialised into a few different types. The most basic and cheapest is a paddle. Just like an oar of a boat, the paddle is just a flat piece of plastic, no frills. It's the least efficient, and the brands kind of know this, so they don't really sort of make too many of these. It's actually quite hard to find a picture of just a standard paddle fin because no one really makes them. An upgrade from this is the channel fin. Channel fins are made from two different materials, a rigid material and a soft black rubberized material. This allows the shape of the blade to actually change into more of a scoop to trap water better and move it down towards the tip. Dual and tri-material fins change shape during each part of the kick cycle, making them more efficient compared to just a standard flat paddle. These are your good sort of all-rounders and you can't go far wrong with these. You can also find fins with a big cut straight down the middle. These are split fins. Split fins come in and out of fashion every few years. Right now they're kind of out of fashion, but they do have their benefits. Split fins are inspired by marine life like seals and have two twisting leaves that use surprisingly little energy, so they're very good if you have bad knees. The downside is that they only do a standard scissor kick. If you try a frog kick or something exotic, they kind of fall apart because it's not what they're made for. And the last standard style is the vented. These guys are short and tough. They're usually made from a single piece of rubber or monoprene or whatever material they want to call it. You just won't find much flair. They're typically black. They just have chunky rails channeling the water and the vent in the middle. These are great all-rounders too, and they're great in confined spaces because they're nice and short. So if you're diving in and out of sort of wrecks or sort of close in groups, you're less likely to kick the wreck or kick your buddy. The very tip of the fins can be quite telling. Look for rails that run all the way down to the tip, as I mentioned earlier, so they're channeling the water all the way down, and little notches as well that help prevent tracking. Tracking is where fins will kind of shudder from side to side when you move them through the water. Channels and these rails will help to prevent that and make it a nice smooth kind of movement, the same as a fishtail tip. Just a standard flat edge or even a rounded curve doesn't really help with tracking, but a fishtail tip does help to prevent it trying to shake your foot around. Freediving fins deserve their own category, so I'll spend some time on another video talking about them, but they're very different from scuba diving fins because they're built for pure efficiency. Bifins will be super long, so they're only really suitable for open waters. Monofins are made to use your entire body, so they're not really designed for scuba diving, but yeah, I'll talk about apnea fins in a different video. But what kind of fins do you prefer? Are you a techie vented fin kind of diver, a classic Mares Avanti Quattro, modern kind of Sea-Wing Nova, or do you partake in a split fin? Let's discuss fins in the comments below, and if you've come across anything exotic, like a force fin or something, and you want to discuss it, pop it down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and of course, safe diving.